So I'm going to give a little talk about HF. That was one of the things we've also talked about is how to get people, a lot of people go out and they get their technician license and, maybe they try to get on the repeaters, maybe not, but they kind of don't get a lot of traction with that and kind of lose interest in stuff. So how many of you have used HF? Just about everybody, except for some people in the back. So So that's one thing we're trying to, the board has talked about that we think the club needs to encourage and help people out, try to remove roadblocks by providing information and assistance to people if they need help, choosing an antenna or radio or whatever. So this,
AI.
Let's see. Yeah, those are AI pictures, as if you couldn't tell. So one thing along with that, we've got an email alias, elmer@w0eno.org. It's available to members, club members and non-members alike. If you have any of these questions or any problems or anything at all, shoot an email out to that. It's a mailing list. It goes to a group of us and we'll try to get your question answered for you. Also, use the little Elmer icon on the presentation for some items like that at the bottom that are helpful. One thing we've mentioned, although I'm probably preaching to the choir here at a club meeting, but joining a club has been shown to really aid people in progressing fast or more quick through the hobby. It gives you a lot of resources. Before this meeting, people were just chatting about various radio-related things. There's nets and all kinds of other stuff. So there's a strong indication that participating in the club, not just being a member, will help you out in your amateur radio journey. One of the, upside or downside with COVID is a lot of clubs went to having Zoom meetings, either fully or partially. We've kind of tried to do a hybrid thing here. But one thing that does allow you to do, if you want to check out other local clubs, you don't have to go in person. You might be able to just get on a Zoom meeting and see. And also, many clubs have a particular focus. Like say socializing, some clubs are focused on contesting, some are more experimenting. So you might want to check out more than one and see kind of which one fits in with your particular interests. And then most clubs have one or more weekly nets on the repeaters. So that's another good place to both get resources, get help, as well as to just check out the club and see what they're doing. So I listed a few area clubs here, obviously Longmont and then Northern Colorado, Weld, and Boulder. And as I mentioned before, and Chuck always brings up, we're always looking for volunteers, presenters, if you've got something you want to talk about. We've had club members before present on things. One guy put up a dipole antenna and, had some issues with it and had to move it and adjust it and stuff. And he gave a talk on that. It was very interesting. So it doesn't have to be any, super high PhD level type stuff or anything. If you're running into problems with amateur radio and you've solved it, or you've got your station set up and it's working great, things like that other people would be interested in. Okay, so as with a lot of things, listening is really the key. You may have heard the thing that you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen more than you speak. There's a lot of different activities going on over HF. And things will go smoother for you if you recognize what's going on before jumping in. Is it a contest? Is it 2 old friends just rag chewing? Is it a net? That sort of thing. It's helpful to listen first. We always say we hope there's more people listening to our nets that we have than check in. But that's a good thing. You can listen to the net, kind of see how it flows, how it goes. But then we definitely encourage you to participate on those. We'd like to think at least we're pretty easy on people on the nets. So. I've probably seen the ARRL has a big chart of all the different amateur radio bands, and it looks something like this. What this shows for 40 meters, there's for novice and technician, they've just got this little area down here that they can do CW only, and they're limited to 200 watts. This is showing that general has everything except for this area and that little area at the beginning. And the red is RTTY and data, the green is phone. And then the advanced, if anybody has those, is similar to the general, but adds that little bit. And then you see the extra gets access to the entire frequency range. So obviously, if you're a technician, you do have a little bit of HF, but if you really want to get into taking advantage of all the different things you can do with HF, it's really good to get to at least the general, because that'll give you permission or the ability to use every HF band, some portion of it. You don't get the whole thing, but some portion. They do have band plans, which I think some of them are in Part 97, kind of codified into FCC rules, but a lot of them are also more kind of gentlemen's agreements or something. For example, you don't want to go on the AM calling frequency, and have a big long rag chew on single sideband, or use voice on the slow scan TV. It's not illegal. You're not going to get a ticket or hauled off to jail. It's just bad practice. Now, one thing you probably hear a lot more on HF than you would hear on analog 2 meter and 70 centimeter is people giving signal reports. It's abbreviated as RST, which stands for readability, strength, and tone. The readability goes 1 to 5, strength and tone are 1 to 9. The tone is only for CW, and I think most of the stuff there probably isn't really applicable to modern radios. That was more when people were building their radios out of tubes, out of TVs and stuff, and they were wanting to know how their tone actually sounded out of that. So you may hear something, you are 5'9". That means you're perfectly readable with a very strong signal. Maybe something like reading you is 3'5", so you can make out what they're saying, but it's a little bit difficult, but they have a fairly strong signal. Now, one thing to note, during a contest, just about every single signal report will be a 5'9". You'll have you'll have to have him repeat his call sign 5 times, and then it'll give him a 5'9". I think that's just to speed things along, for contests. The type A people that really get jacked up on those, they're trying to make as many contacts as they can, so anything to speed it up helps them out. You notice a lot of log programs will default to putting in a 5'9" for the signal report for that reason. Another thing is, don't get upset if you get a bad signal report. If someone gives you a bad signal report, you don't say, well, I got this flex radio and stuff, it must be you, it's not me. You don't really know how you sound on the other end. So they're actually helping you out by providing that feedback to you. Okay, so which band do you want to use? That was a question I got asked when I went down to HRO with my first radio. Said I was looking for antennas. They wanted to know which bands I wanted to use. And, I had no clue at the time. Obviously, it depends on your license class. You're going to be much more restricted if you've got a technician license than if you've got a general or extra. Although techs do have limited HF privileges. They've got a small portion of 10 meters where you can actually do voice on them. The other bands are CW, so you do have to learn Morse code. Well, either learn Morse code or have a computer and to decode it and send it for you, I suppose. And as I mentioned before, generals have some privileges on all the HF bands. So really, getting that upgrade to general will really behoove you a lot, especially if you've already in the studying mode for technician. The general, it's got some new information, but a lot of the rules, all that stuff is still the same. And even with the $35 licensing fee, all the upgrades are free, so it doesn't cost you anything there. Okay, once you start using HF, you'll notice that the bands have different propagation characteristics, different times of the day, different seasons of the year. Things like 80 meters, that one's best at night. 40 meters is best near dawn or dusk. 20 and 10 meters are pretty good during the day, especially during the higher part of the sunspot cycle, which I believe we're in or close to now. The sunspot cycles can do drastically affect radio propagation. So sometimes you may be able to make contacts. You might have a QRP radio able to contact someone over in Europe. Other times you're not going to be able to get anywhere on it. So if you do have to choose one band for an antenna, 40 meters is probably a good one. I've seen some notes that said it's always open to somewhere. So you may not be able to get to Europe all the time, but at least you can get out to somebody. And when we talk about an open band, that means that those conditions are there for skywave propagation. So that's your radio signal going up through the atmosphere, getting refracted back down. Another thing you can look at is this chart, and I believe Chuck added this to the bottom of our club webpage. It's also on qrz.com. And the information is from this webpage. It's got a ton of information, explains what all these things mean. But real quickly, there's this section under HF conditions that just gives you kind of a quick reading for the different bands, whether you can expect it to be good, fair, or poor, and splits it out to day and nighttime. So if you're just sitting down to your radio and don't know what to do, you can check on that and see where you'll probably have a good chance of being able to make some contacts. And it's got a ton of other information about sunspots and magnetic flux and all kinds of stuff. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's a good website to check out. Another website that has this kind of neat graph, it's dxheat.com, and it displays the band activity over the past hour. So it's based on spotting information that's provided by hams. So if I make a contact to somebody, say I contact someone in Alaska, I could go to the spotting site, log that on there, say I've made a contact from Colorado to Alaska on this band at this time, and it will log that, but it also comes up with this heat map diagram. So you can set here from what continent you're on, so we're in North America, and then across the top it's got the continents, down the side it's got the bands. So you can see on 20 meters going from North America to North America, it's pretty hot. There's a lot of contacts going on. There's a little bit over to Europe and a little bit over to Asia. But like I said, this is updated every 60 minutes, or it's updated sooner, but it's based on 60 minutes of spotting information. This is somewhere you can go to check out to see which bands are really active. This page just lists a bunch of Q signs, some of the more common ones that you may hear. Probably everyone's familiar with CQ. You're trying to call another station or get a contact. There's a bunch of other ones dealing with noise. QRZ is something you'll probably hear a lot for contesting. A lot of times, remote stations, they'll call CQ, they'll work somebody, and when they're finished, they'll just say QRZ instead of doing the whole CQ again. These are primarily things that were developed for Morse code. As you can tell, instead of sounding out interference from natural causes, I don't know how many keystrokes that would be on a Morse code key, they used to abbreviate that to QRN. So that's kind of where these came from. 73, if you really want to annoy people like my wife, you say 73s, but you're not supposed to say that. It's already plural, but that really gets some people upset. But these, you may hear these sometimes on, repeaters or 2 meters, 70 centimeter type stuff. They try to encourage people to just use, regular words instead of these abbreviations that the new people may not understand. And there's a whole bunch more than that. That's just kind of some common ones. Okay, so if you want to get started, these are kind of two things usually that come up with contesting and that area, but it's kind of different ways of operating your radio. You sit down at your radio and turn it on. In a broad sense, you can either search, look for other stations, maybe that are calling CQ or that are in contacts, and then you can try to contact them. Or you can do, they call with contest running. That's where you find an open frequency and you call CQ and try to get people to talk back to you. And during contesting, you switch back and forth between these. If you're getting a lot of contacts with the search and pounce and then those kind of dry up, then you can switch to the other one. It's the same with regular operating. So I kind of did a quick little thing here of what you might hear for a search and pounce. At the top, you've got somebody calling CQ. You want to make your CQ long enough that someone who's looking at a band scope, a waterfall display, or even some of us people that have older radios with no waterfall display that's tuning around the band, you want to make sure you're talking long enough that they can actually see you. On the repeater, to indicate we want to contact, you just say your call sign. But if I just say AF0W, what's the chance someone's even going to see that across the whole HF band? So you want to say something a little bit longer. To respond to that, they give their call sign back. And you may have multiple people giving their call sign back. You might end up with something called a pileup and have a lot of people giving their call signs back. Then you've got to kind of figure out one to talk to. But then the remote station comes back with my call sign to indicate he's talking to me, not the other 5 people that may have responded. And he says, you're coming in 5-9 in San Diego, so he's giving me a signal report. This might be during some sort of contest where you're supposed to give a signal report and city or location. So then we'd say, thanks, you're 5-7 in Colorado, that's giving him his signal report. And then they just say 73 and thanks for the contact, and then QRZ. So they're looking for the next contact. So in this case, they're not looking for a rag chew. If people are trying to do contesting or working fast and you start trying to ask them questions and stuff, that's going to throw them off and really bother them. So again, that's kind of a listen first thing. You would hear him calling CQ and talking to some other people, and you could kind of get a feel for whether he's in a hurry or not. On the other one, if you're running, you're the one calling CQ, and you hear somebody respond back or choose a call sign. And in this case, they say, great signal into Colorado. I'd say you're a 5-9, you're a little more chatty. Someone else says they've got a lot of interference on their end. You're a 34 here. And then they ask, what sort of antenna are you using? So they're kind of going into having more of a rag chew type of conversation with it. Okay, so either way, one thing you have to do is find frequency. Now with those band plans and charts, you can see what frequencies you're allowed to use based on your license class or allowed to transmit on. What you would want to do if you're going to transmit is tune to some allowed frequency. And you may look, if you have radio has a band display like this, you can see over here, there's not a lot of traffic going on. You wouldn't want to choose over here. That's probably in the digital section. You want to ask if the frequency is in use. Give your call sign, ask if it's in use. Because based on propagation, if two stations are talking to each other, you may not hear one of them. You may not hear either of them, but it's totally possible you won't hear one of them, but you would hear the other one. So the idea is when you ask if it's in use, you wait about 10 seconds and ask again. Hopefully the other party in that conversation will hear you kind of breaking in, and they'll be able to respond and tell you, hey, we're on this frequency. If no one answers, go ahead and use it. And of course, with the FCC rules, no one owns any of the frequencies. Although if you are asked to move, it's easier to do that than argue. If somebody comes on and says, hey, we've got a net starting here, you could be a jerk and just say, well, I was here first. And, you'll get into a big argument, it'll cause a lot of problems. Or you can just tune to a different frequency and get back to running the radios. So I guess depending on what kind of personality you have, affect your choices there. You want to make sure you're at least 3 kilohertz away from other voice QSOs, as well as the band edges. So if you're using upper sideband, you don't want to be right at the right uppermost part of the band, or your signal will actually be outside of it. You want to be sure you're not stepping on other people. Usually that's pretty easy to do during events like field day or other big contests. It becomes a little more difficult. And again, those propagation and noise conditions, they're changing continuously. So just because you don't hear anybody else and nobody, you're not interfering with anybody else, at some point, 5 minutes later, those conditions may change. Suddenly you're interfering with another QSO that's been going on. Again, you can spin the VFO, go somewhere else and get back to operating, or I suppose sit there and argue with them. Okay, so a QSO, that's a conversation between two stations. Typically, it'll consist of an exchange of call signs and signal reports, and it may be followed by rag chewing or discussion. If it's during a contest, there's usually something called an exchange that's used. Like for field day, it's, let's see, the type of station, if it's a club station or a home, the number of transmitters at it, and your ARRL section, I believe, are what you need. So different contests have different requirements for that. Again, that's something you may be able to pick up by just listening to other people make contest connections or QSOs. And again, remember to listen. You'll hear how they're working. Are they rag chewing, or are they trying to make those rapid fire QSOs? If you don't want to try to jump in and do the rapid fire thing, just tune somewhere else. Okay, as far as having conversations, that's something that's a little difficult for me. I don't know how I got talked into doing this, but I'm usually fairly introverted, so it might be hard to make up, just strike up a conversation with someone you meet at a party or something. But at least for amateur radio, you already know the other party has at least some interest in radio, so there's always that. Again, if you do hear them working a contest, don't try to chat with them. They recommend avoiding controversial topics, even if it's with like-minded individuals. One of the reasons for that is, if you and your friends are having the Donald Trump is great net or whatever, and say I'm don't know that's going on. I've got a friend who's sort of interested in amateur radio, and I say, yeah, check this out. Let me tune to the repeater. And the first thing he hears is, everyone spouting off about something like that. That might leave a bad taste in his mouth. Well, or he might want to be president of the group. But either way, it's better to stay off of that type of thing. Keep personal conflicts off the air. So if Kat and I are fighting about something, we'll have to get off the radio and go to the cell phone.
We don't ever fight.
Also avoid CB jargon, the 10-4, all that type of stuff. Unless nobody's talking to you on the repeater, I guess you could start saying some of that. Someone will come on and tell you not to, so you can see if your radio's working.
Radio check.
I saw somewhere they said don't say anything you wouldn't repeat in front of your mother. I suppose that depends on your relationship with your parents, but another thing that some people find difficult is ending the conversation. I know a lot of times you get into some conversation, you kind of run out of things to say, and the other person isn't saying anything useful, but you're just going back and forth. Some things you might hear from that, someone may say, I'll be clear on your final. So what that means is you're kind of turning it over to them and, telling them thanks, I'll see you later, and you're waiting for them to say something, and then you're going to be done. That means they want to end the conversation with you, so you should just reply with a closing statement, not, well, yeah, it's been great talking to you. Oh, and my gout is, or whatever. You don't want to keep going. And all you need to say is something like, it's been great talking with you. Thanks for coming back to me. 73 and have a good day, or good talking to you. I'll let you get on to someone else, if you've answered their QSO. Anything like that. I've heard a lot of times on repeaters, people will be talking and someone will say, well, I got to Home Depot, so I'll see you later. People are used to that sort of thing. So
I think the one thing to point out with a lot of, the erections and whatever, remember the legal requirements to ID every 10 minutes. Yeah. I see a lot, even on the repeaters, people get going and, they don't ID. And, you can just call time. There's no reason to say your call time for ID. That's kind of redundant, but that's one of the things that I've seen on HF and also on some of the nets is keeping in mind your legal requirements.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that on the Tuesday night net a couple of times. I usually try to put something in my notes to remind myself to identify. But yeah, you want to still keep up with those rules. Phonetics, that's another thing, really bothers some people, but also it can kind of be a hassle if you're on the receiving end of them. You always want to start with proper phonetics, the ITU phonetic alphabet. But if for some reason you can't get through, you can use alternates. I've heard people use America, France, Washington, things like that. I had to use the Washington once. I was trying to get my call sign across to someone and they just weren't understanding the whiskey. Especially people who are foreign, they don't have English as their first language. That might be something to help.
Or they don't drink whiskey.
I guess. But, if you come back with something, call sign's a fat zero weasel, then I've got to think, well, wait a minute, what's he talking about? And then I've got to try to map the words to the letters. It's just a hassle. Logging. So typically with VHF, UHF, especially repeater contacts, FM stuff, we typically don't log those contacts. Maybe if you're doing a single sideband over them, you might. But on HF, many hams do log those QSOs. There are a ton of logging applications available, probably almost too many. Some hams prefer old school, just using paper logs. If you're doing parts on the air or something, you don't want to have a computer or try to use your phone. Your batteries aren't going to die on a piece of paper. And I suppose it could get rained on. So there's pluses and minuses of that. Typically, dates and times are logged in UTC. Obviously, amateur radio is a worldwide hobby. So it just makes it easier when they're trying to match up contacts for a contest and things if they aren't having to convert time zones at the same time. The log entries can really include anything you want unless there's specific requirements for a contest that you're participating in. But typically you have the date, time, and the band or the frequency. You might then record both signal reports and the other station's call sign. But you can also include things like what kind of radio they had, what kind of antenna they had, what power, what their name is. You can even, I've seen some people write things that, has 2 kids, one's at college, and, you might put notes in there as well if you're talking to people a lot. So really, you can put anything you want in the log. Might also be useful. I wish I had done this. I switched HF antennas a few months after I started with amateur radio, and I wish I'd made a log entry to say now I'm on the new antenna. So even if you change stuff in your shack or operate different, you might want to log stuff like that. And if you are using electronic log programs, make sure you back them up. A lot of people were really scared when ARL got hacked and they were worried about the logbook of the world data. It was okay, but if that had gotten wiped out, a lot of people might have had problems. Something you might want to do once you get on HF is update QRZ. It's a web page. It isn't associated with the ARL or the FCC or anything. But what they do is they pull over the license information, and you can go search on a call sign, and it'll bring up a page about people. It won't have very much information. It'll just have the public information in there. But you can go in and add some things like a dating profile. You can put a much younger picture, all kinds of stuff. It could be useful to check out when you're communicating with another ham. You could maybe pull up their QRZ page, give you some topics to talk about.
And you can take your files from Logbook of the World and put them in QRZ. And
Yeah.
back and forth, you can do both. Sometimes a contact will come in on Logbook, sometimes QRZ. You can load them both up so they're both even. And if one goes down, then.
Yeah, QRZ does have a logging function as well that you can use. Something else that might be helpful is QSO aids. The guy we bought our first HF radio for, he demonstrated in his shack, showed us that it worked and stuff, and we got to talking to him. But I noticed he had this bulletin board up that had all kinds of things like, it's his frequency in use, it's got his call sign, it's got his call sign in phonetics, how to call CQ, how to answer it. I think he had another one that even had the names of his kids on it. So if you go blank with those sort of things, or you're real nervous about getting on the radio, having something like this might kind of help settle you down with that. Okay, so getting on the air. So what can you do? You want to get on the air, you've got your radio, you've got your antenna, it's all set up, you don't know what to do. Well, there's tons of different things out there. These are just a few of them. Like, you guys want to go home tonight, so I don't want to keep us here forever. One of the things you can do, and you don't even need a radio for this, is just listening. There's a couple of websites here. These first two have people will connect their radio, either software-defined radio or some other radio. They run some software on it, and it's visible on a web page like this, and multiple people can access that web page and tune around to different frequencies and listen. So that's pretty neat. They're located all around the world. One thing that's useful is they can be listened or used to listen to your own signal. So I mentioned before, you don't know how you sound. Well, this is one way you can figure that out. If you can find one of these receivers that can hear your transmissions, you can check it out with that. This remote hams thing goes kind of a step further, and they will actually let you control the radio and transmit on some of them. Some of them said they weren't. I believe I didn't get too far into that. I didn't see any place where you had to pay. So that might be free. You do have to upload a copy of your license to show that you're a licensed amateur to do that.
I think most of them you pay for time.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I figure nothing's free, but that may be something, if you're in an HOA or retirement home or something, can't put up an antenna, something like this may allow you to get on HF and still experience the fun with that. There's the OMIS, the Old Man International Sideband Society. I think they allow women in it as well. But they say they operate a list type award net on the general amateur radio bands. It's basically a net, and when they get around to you, they say, well, do you have any contacts you'd like to make? And you could say, well, I need to talk to someone in Alaska to get work all states. And they'll say, okay, is anyone else on this net in Alaska? And they'll give you a short amount of time to just make that quick QSO so you can tick off the box type of deal. And like I said, it's great if you're just missing a few states for something. Also, Joe up at NCART mentioned they're very helpful with new hams. So that might be another thing if you're operating on HF. That's something to check out. Parks on the Air, probably everyone's heard of that. You basically take a portable setup, you go out into a park somewhere, you activate it by making contacts with other people. And I think you have to get 10 contacts for the activation to be a success. So you can do that. There's kind of two sides of that. There's the activators, are the ones that go out to the park and sit in the rain and all that. You can also be a hunter and sit in the comfort of your own home, and you're trying to contact those people. And they've got a big website that tracks all this stuff. They've got some awards and things. The Parks on the Air is the site. For those, most of their contacts are fairly quick because, again, they want to get those 10 contacts in. There's also some cool stuff like Chuck got activated a park. It shows if people have ever activated a particular park before. It's typically national and state parks. And he found one that hadn't been activated, went and activated it. So his name and call sign is on that record as the first person to activate it. So
Are you sure that was the right web address? I think it's POTA.app.
there's two different, there's this one, and then the POTA.app is where they have all the actual spots of people and stuff like that.
Okay, and it also has all the information, like if you just have never done it and you want to know the rules and all that stuff, it's on there too.
Yeah, I think this one kind of came first, and then they developed that POTA app one. Another thing is contests. That can be good for if you're someone like me that feels uncomfortable having conversations with people you don't know on the radio. A contest is a great way to get around that because all they want is they just want, your call sign in that exchange, and they're on to the next person. So ICOM sponsors a contest calendar. They've got, weekly, 12-month, whatever. You can look at it. It'll show you the date, has bars as to when the contests are actually occurring. And then if you click on the contest name over on the left, it'll pull up details about the contest, including the webpage, the rules, what the exchange is. A lot of times when people are in contests, they'll say CQ contest. When we do field day, we say CQ field day to indicate we're participating in that. The rules for the contest will differ, so be sure to check them. Some of them have limits on the power you can use, if you can use spotting sites or not, and all kinds of things. There's a group of people that hate contesting as well. There's the WARC bands, 30, 17, and 12 meters, kind of a gentleman's agreement. Contesting does not take place on those. So if you're sick and tired of the 5-9 contacts and stuff, a big contest weekend, you can check that out. If you do actually participate in a contest, you typically need to upload your logs to the contest site so that you and the people you contact get credit for it. One thing is contesting definitely brings out bad behavior in hams. So step on people. If the station calls CQ, everybody answers in a pileup, and he says, okay, what was that Colorado station? And, someone not in Colorado or the call sign doesn't start with an A, for example, will answer. So there's all kinds of bad behavior. Try to resist the temptation to join them just to get a few more contacts. WinLink is it's a digital mode that you can use. It's actually a network of stations that provide, they call it worldwide radio email. Now it can utilize the internet so that when I send a WinLink email from my computer using my radio, it gets picked up by another radio, and then it can upload it into the WinLink system over the internet, but it's also set up that it can do that all over radio. Now, of course, it takes a lot longer with the radio, so I think it pretty much defaults to the internet for the back end unless it's down. One thing you can do with that is you can send information in standardized forms, like some of those ICS forms, or you might have seen the radiogram form that the ARL has. With the WinLink software will actually let you pop that form up on the screen and fill in the fields. And then in the background, it will send that over radio. The other station receives it and they see it like that. So it's something the ARL was pushing for a while. I'm not sure if they still do as much for their ARES activations, like to communicate between Red Cross shelters or something like that. They've got applications for a bunch of different platforms. They've also got some gateways, so you can use SMS on your cell phone or APRS to initiate and retrieve messages. So it's kind of a neat system they've got. Then, of course, there's digital modes. Going into this would be a whole nother presentation. Just try to list some kind of common software. There's software called FLDigi. It supports a bunch of different digital modes. Another extremely common one is WSJTX. That's what people typically use for FT8 and FT4. And they also, with the whole set of digital modes, some of the modes are kind of conversational. Things like RTTY, PSK31, or JS8 call you can actually have, they're meant for keyboard to keyboard conversations. Whereas other things are highly regimented and used to make minimal contacts. If you've ever used FT8, you know, it has some capability of sending ad hoc messages, but most people don't use that. You know, it's typically just a signal report and grid square and then the same back, and then they're on to the next contact. So I suppose this is another way, if you don't like talking to people, you can do these type of things and avoid all of that. But there's a ton of different digital modes out there. As a matter of fact, sometimes it becomes hard to recognize them. When you hear something on the radio, it's not people talking, it's not Morse code. It may look like something like this on your waterfall. Well, you can go to this website and they will actually have pictures of the signals, what they look like on a waterfall, and samples of them. So you can try to figure out what it is. And then you can go to something like FLDigi, and you know, if you identify that that's RTY, then you can go to FLDigi and actually decode it. Okay, so. But wait, you know, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of stuff you can do with HF and with amateur radio. There's just tons and tons of stuff. So if you're bored with amateur radio, you're not really trying very hard. But if there's anything with HF, again, we're always looking for things to discuss on METs or things to bring up at meetings like this. You know, if you've heard something about, you know, collecting even, or solar power or moon bounce, and you'd like to hear more about that, let us know. There's a form you can fill out on the website. It'll go to the board, and we could either, someone on the board could do the presentation, or maybe we can find somebody on YouTube that's an expert in it and get that in, or maybe even have a activity. Chuck and I got together and tried to do some satellite activation. We were able to hear it, but we couldn't get anyone to hear us. And then we were getting too sunburned to continue. But, you know, stuff like that's a good activity. This is just some different links of things. There's a code of conduct, the ARLs. I've got a thing of operating tips for making your contacts. This is just some amateur radio logging applications I came across. Some of them are multi-platform, some of them are web-based, some of them run on your cell phone. So there's just a ton of ones out there to look at. Oh, these are the online type ones. And as Kevin mentioned, some of them, like QRZ, will send contacts or exchange contacts back and forth with ARL's Logbook of the World. This is just a couple of YouTube channels that I watch. You know, Dave Kassler, he now writes an article for or a column for the ARL's QST. Jason KM4ACK has some pretty good stuff for portable operations. And somebody up at NCARC suggested this as a book for DXCC. And a couple months ago, we had Ed gave a talk on DXCCs, the DX, was it DX Century Club? Okay. So an ARL, basically a contest where if you activate 100 DX entities, so stuff outside of the continental US, you can get an award certificate, and then you can do all kinds, you know, you can activate them with voice, you can activate them with CW, you can activate them with digital, you can do different bands. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do with that. Okay, so finally, that's over. I've uploaded these slides to the webpage, and I'll put the recording up. There's some stuff after this, just some additional things you might want to look at, some groups and things, but I figured everyone would want to go home at some point, so I didn't go into all that.
I just kind of want to point out one thing for people that are just getting started with some of the contests. If you're using the hunting pallets, you can listen, you know, to somebody on there, and you have all of the information in the exchange. So you can write it down. You can write down, you know, what you need to say, and it makes it a lot easier because you know the person's call sign, you know where they're at, you know what they're doing, and I think it helps for new people that usually start with the hunting pounds, and you know that I think it makes you feel a little more comfortable. You know, when you're running, especially for field day, it gets hectic at times, picking up the call signs, trying to, you know, write down all of the information.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it definitely does work that way. It's a lot lower stress to do the search and pounce type thing.
I was just going to say, as far as like getting questions answered and stuff, in addition to the resources that we have, The Northern Colorado Club has a net on Monday nights that's pretty good net. There's usually some pretty smart people there. I hear Ed on there a lot, and they're usually pretty friendly. So if you have questions, you can go there. And the other thing I was going to say is, unlike those band condition charts, well, they are helpful. Don't let them discourage you. Like, say you want to go do a photo and you look and it says the bands are dead. That doesn't really mean they're dead. Because a lot of times it depends where you're at, and then they're showing the whole world. So it's a good indication, but don't let it be the end all be all of whether you're going to play radio that day or not.
Yeah, like that DX heat map, that's based off of spotting reports that are received. So there could be tons of people talking and nobody is spotting them, and it'll look dead, but it really isn't. And a lot of times everyone always complains, the HF bands are dead, nobody's on them. But, come a contest weekend, they're wall to wall with people. And it's kind of amusing. You can watch that, and then the contest, if it's over at 3 p.m. at 3:01, all that goes away. So a lot of times it's not that the bands aren't open, it's just that people aren't on it.
Probably we've all found you never know what's going to be on the air, and you never know what you're going to hear or work. I think it's a lot like fishing. It's a perfect day. I'm going to really nothing. I got my fish spot, nothing.
Yeah, because I know I've got on for field day, because usually 20 meters is, the real popular. And I don't need to be on 20 meters, so I'll go to 15, and it is, at the beginning, it'll sound dead. And, you don't hear anything, but as soon as you get on, all of the people that are just kind of lurking in the background, come on. So, just because you don't hear anything, do your call, the frequencies in use, and make a call, and you never know.
Yeah, and don't give up right away. I've seen some people on field day, they'll call CQ once, not hear anybody, call CQ again, not hear anybody, and they'll tune around a little bit and call CQ again. You're just making it harder for people to find you. You need to ideally stick on one frequency, call CQ a number of times, and hopefully someone like me will be scrolling across the band and hit you, or people with the fancy waterfall things will see a nice good signal there and tune you in. So,
or all of a sudden you get a band opening while you're there, and it just it kind of explodes from there.
Yeah,
I found during this sunspot cycle, maybe you have 212 meters has been really interesting for DX.
Yeah, and I've heard people on the Thursday night net that we have. There's been some people that operate HF, and they'll get on and discuss and say things like that. 12 meters was hopping today and things like that. So that's a good thing to check out as well. Anybody have anything else or any questions or anything at all?
Good presentation.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the meeting. Next time, let's make sure we get that email out early enough so everyone gets the Zoom information. Maybe we'll get a few more people. But again, if you are able to make it in person, that's good. You can get a little camaraderie going, more interpersonal talking to people and stuff. But if you can't make it, the Zoom's always available, and then we typically upload them to YouTube as well. And I believe that NCARC net that you're talking about, they do have those recordings of the net on YouTube also.
Yes.
So you can check them out there if you've missed it. All right. Well, I guess have a good night. Safe drive home. And thanks for attending.
Thanks, Bryan. Good presentation.
Thank you. But we have talked as a board that we'd like to try to get people to be in person. So that definitely worked out good. And thank you, everyone, for showing up. Let's see, our LARC Fest 2025 is in the books. It was a pretty good success. I'm not sure what we usually make at a LARC Fest, but I think we brought in a little over $3,000 for this event.
You did what?
So we did very well compared to previous years. We did get rid of some stuff out of the storage, not all of it, but
Not enough.
yeah, not enough. So.
Roll off.
Yes.
I say that because I moved it out and
We'll push harder for the sales next time.
Yeah. So Chuck wanted me to communicate. He couldn't make it to the meeting tonight, but he wanted me to communicate thanks to everyone who volunteered or attended the LARC Fest as well. That's important also. So I don't know if he was going to talk to the vendors and see, what they thought of it, if they thought it was well received and stuff. We tried some new things this year. They had Chuck was calling it a coat check area. The idea being that if, you bought a big amplifier, a big oscilloscope, and you didn't want to haul it around with you, you could leave it there. I don't think that got used very heavily.
Not at all.
So I'm not sure.
One person, I think.
Not sure we'll do that. He also offered club tables for free. So right when you came in the door, there was all those club tables that you were routed through. Heard from a couple of people talking that they liked that. They were able to meet people that they had heard on the air, but not face to face. So I think that went pretty well. Also had to thank some experts on YouTube, and you could go into one of the rooms off there, ask some questions. I was able to get some questions answered. Dave Kassler, and I'm not familiar with who the other guys are, but he tended to do most of the talking. The other guys kind of just sat back for most of it, but I think that was pretty good. They were keeping a log of how many people were asking questions. I haven't heard how many people actually did, but I think that went pretty good. That being said, we're already looking for a team to put together for Waterfest 2026. Chuck has said he wants to step down as the coordinator of LARCFest. So we're looking for someone to kind of take over that coordination role, and then as well as a lot of volunteers. We do need a lot of volunteers to help out with that, and we figure the earlier we get started, it'll be not as stressful trying to plan everything at the last minute. So if you can help out at all with that, please let us know. I'm assuming he's going to post something on the website at some point to sign up for that. Speaking of the website, he put up a survey. I think it may have been a month or so now. If you haven't taken that, please do. It's on the main homepage of the website, which is w0eno.org. And it says, I think it says LARC survey. If you take that, just ask a couple of quick questions about some of the meetings, the nets, and volunteer stuff. Again, just trying to figure out how we can get more involvement for club members, what kind of stuff club members want to do, and we'll participate in so we can get stuff set up. Chuck's been pushing real hard since he's been president of trying to have at least one activity each month to get together, like a fox hunt or a POTA or something like that, just to get people together and either be on the radio or at least do something radio related. So if you've got any ideas for activities like that you'd like to see, bring those up too. I'm sure he'd be happy to put stuff together, or if you want to run them, he'd be even more happy. Also, there's a new for sale page on the web. Currently, there's a 1 kilowatt HF amplifier, and then the Yaesu FT5000 that we were trying to sell at LARCFest. I guess we didn't get any bites on that. So if you win the lottery, want to check it out, that'd be good. The next large club event we've got is Summerfield Day. That's going to be on June 28th and 29th this year. So as with all the events, the more help we get, the easier it is for everybody with that. We need help with things like setup, tear down, food. We're going to have a GOTA station, and then they've got, if you've ever done field day, they've got a bunch of things you can do to get bonus points. So we usually try to have people kind of focus on some of those so we can get points for that as well. And it will be over in the park right across from here. Let's see, there's a group that's planning. No, go ahead.
Chuck, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Chuck.
Oh, Bryan.
Bryan. Chuck put a invitation for a meeting for organization for Summerfield Day on Monday. So
yeah, I was just going to mention that.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. That's fine. Our first, just trying to put together a group to kind of plan and help out, or plan and work on the Summerfield Day. The first meeting is this coming Monday, April 21st from 7 to 8 p.m. on Zoom. So if you'd like to help out with that, if you can either help out at field day, or even if you can't be there on field day, if you've ever been to one before, have some ideas of what we could do better, or anything like that, please plan on attending, and you can get in touch with Chuck for the Zoom meeting and for information for that. Farther down in the year, HamCon Colorado 2025 for the Rocky Mountain Division. That's October 23rd through 26th, and it's in Grand Junction. And there's kind of been some talk on the board of trying to figure out some way to kind of participate in that. It is a bit of a drive, but if you're at all interested in that, that's something else to look out for. Bob Mathias, WA0JJC, has been acting as net control for the Thursday night meeting. Since Jerry passed away, that's kind of been in limbo a little bit, since he used to always run that, but he's not going to be able to attend tomorrow. He's out of town. So if anyone would like to volunteer for running that net tomorrow, that would be great. Also, he said that he'd be welcome if someone else either wants to take it over permanently or more regularly. He would appreciate that as well. We kind of do that with the Hamlet net. Usually Chuck runs it, but I think one week a month, somebody else has signed up to run it too. So it's not the same net control all the time. But that's something you can help out with if you'd like to run that. We've also got 2 other nets on our repeater. We've got the Tuesday night Hamlet net that's kind of oriented more toward new hams, but we talk about stuff like the meeting last night. We talked about mobile antenna installations and had a lot of good information on that. Mark looked like has his Jeep out there, so he talked a little bit about all the stuff he's done for that. So if you want to see a way overkill vehicle install, he actually did a talk on the Rocky Mountain Ham NERP Fest. So if you go to their webpage, it's rmham.net, and you can .org. Okay, and you can go and see the presentations there, and it's got a video of it. Also, just a reminder, members of the club get together for breakfast on Saturday mornings at the Hidden Cafe in Longmont. It's even a little more hidden now with all the construction going on Kaufman Street, but that starts at 8 a.m., but I've heard that you might want to get there a little bit early to get a good seat. There's a good group of people that show up for that every week, so check that out. Also, RM Ham University, their final presentation this year is titled Grounding and Lightning Protection. So if you've read anything about that or looked on the internet, you know, everyone's got a different opinion on that. There's a bunch of different schools of thought and everything. So Mike K7AIH is going to do that presentation. So you can check that out and see what he's got to say on it. That is on April 26th from 8:30 to noon. And you can attend live at the Greenwood Village at the Cherry Creek Schools Educational Service Center. And they've also got it on Zoom as well. And once again, you can go to their website, www.rmham.org, and check that out and sign up for it. Also, I finally caught up and uploaded all the club meeting recordings that we've had over the past couple of years when I was out of town. Those are up on the webpage, or you can get to them under presentations. It's under the club history menu. And it has links to YouTube. And then for some of the presentations, we actually have the slides as well, and those are there to download. Okay, we've got a couple of board members here. Is there anything anyone wants to bring up?
Yeah, Steve and FTI, Steve Robiano. I just to let everyone know that we have reestablished communications with the city of Longmont, and will be participating in the parades and other events that will be going on. The first one is actually in August. So I'll be sending some information out to looking for volunteers, looking for people to act as the net control for that, and just to get back into working with the city. Plus, we'll also have the Kiwanis Parade, which is the weekend prior to the Boulder County Fair. We go through Longmont, and that's always loads of fun. I think like Longhorn cattle going down Main Street in Longmont. It's a good time.
Okay, great. Yeah, and to participate in the parades and stuff, what do they need? Other than a technician license and a radio. That's pretty much it.
Probably a water bottle.
Okay.
Willingness to stand out sometimes in the heat, sometimes in the cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I bring a folding stool. That's not a bad idea.
Exactly. So, really, we'll send a general note out to it, but it's really quite easy. And it's a good service for providing.
Yeah, that's good to be able to provide back to the community, and kind of, a lot of people have the opinion that ham radio is dead. You know, there's no need for it with cell phones and stuff. So it's good to be able to be out there and help with that.
You haven't gotten in advance this far, but I've been with lots of groups, volunteer groups, that get 2 to 4 people and carry a banner just, down the street. Say who you are. Otherwise, you have to read what it says on your shirt. That's all.
Good point.
Yeah, I saw something. I don't know where I came across it. If it was somewhere on the webpage, but they had some pictures that evidently LARC had afloat. I mean, this was way old. Black and white pictures and stuff.
I'm a Lady of Liberty.
No.
I wear a dress.
So I suppose that could be something, if people really wanted to get into it, we could set something up like that, but. Okay, Mark?
Just to add, kind of double or go on what you said about the club tables. Before the event, I'd heard some, comments that people weren't thinking that it was how successful it was going to be. People are going to want to get in and shop. And I thought that went over very well. I was just surprised at all of the people that were there and talking. I'm glad that Chuck, had someone from the GMRS group. I've been pushing for, pushing the hobby, pushing the communications, and that we're trying to get members from other groups. So I think everybody I've talked to, I thought it was well received, and from standing there, I thought we had a very good turnout, even from the club tables, but also some of the vendors. Actually, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of the stuff on sale. And from the technical side, we started looking, up in Meade is where the main transmitter for the repeater is at this point. But because it's on a temporary tower, a bunch of things that we have to get off of, because R&M will be taking it to Summer Field Day. We've got a tower, or not a tower, but a little crank up that we're going to put the antenna on. I purchased Club doesn't know it yet, but I got a good deal on the HF duplexer. So it's going to go from its temporary location to another temporary permanent, as there's starting to be some construction and some things up there. So probably going to reach out to get some help when we to move that.
Yeah, and just on that, that's the 2-meter repeater has moved out there. So if you haven't tried, if you've had trouble getting into the repeaters before and haven't tried them for a while, maybe give that another try and see if you get any better performance out of it this time. I know a number of people have said it's worked a lot better for them in that location. Chuck?
I was just going to say, we've also been helping out the radio club at CU here lately. And me and Chuck went over a few weeks ago and helped them build out a little go box. And we're trying to get them a little more involved in doing things.
Good. Yeah, so Chuck's pretty big on trying to work with different clubs, not trying to make just have the Longmont club and it's going to be the best club ever and we're not going to, we're going to stomp on everybody else. It's not that type of thing. It's really just trying to advance the hobby and get people involved with amateur radio.
So you're working at all with James Isaacs. He's on the NCARC in Technic, but he also works at the University with CU. So,
okay, I didn't know that.
So I think
I don't know if Chuck is or not. We're just was just the kid that's the president of the club there. We just went over to one of their buildings and they had like one of those Harbor Freight cases, and I think Chuck gave him a ICOM 7100 that had been donated to us, and we just set them up, and they had a Wolf River coil already, and we just kind of.
Oh, so you said CU, not CSU, right?
CU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, CU.
I'm off.
Yeah, James is with CSU.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and it was
over in Boulder. Yeah.
Okay.
Mentioning that with the Go Box, that is one of the big benefits of this club, I think. We do have an HF Go Box. Well, it's an HF and a dual band 2-meter 70-centimeter radio in a kind of Pelican case type thing. It's got a Wolf River coil antenna, a J pole for the 2-meter 70-centimeter, battery, solar panel, inverter, laptop, all kinds of stuff that's free for club members to check out and use. There's a little short training thing you go through, but it's no big deal. You can check that out if you want to go do a Parks on the Air or something and you don't have a portable setup. It's great for stuff like that. One of the problems with it, though, is it's pretty big. So one of the things Chuck wants to do is make a smaller HF Go kit that would just be HF, not have all the extra stuff attached to it. But he's not going to be able to do that until we sell that Yaesu 5000 radio. So he's on hold for a little bit with that. But they did put together a DMR Go Box. It's got a DMR HT in it and a hotspot. So the idea is if you're looking to explore DMR at all, if you want to check that out, you can. And again, you can try it out, see how it works without having to go out and buy a radio and all that stuff. Rocky Mountain Ham has a very extensive network up and down Colorado, up to Wyoming, down to New Mexico. So it's a really nice thing that we can take advantage of here. And then also we're putting together a satellite go box. I believe, I'm not sure exactly what will be in it. We were discussing that before the meeting, but I believe Chuck has a dual band HT and a Arrow antenna, and that'll be set up in a box that again, you could check out and do satellite stuff with it, or I suppose that would work for a Parks on the Air or SOTA if you're going to just do 2 meters. Okay, then I want to thank everybody that's joined on the Zoom meeting too. It looks like everyone's got their call signs there, so great. Thank you very much for that. So without further ado,